Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today, we are going to be working on a little DIY maintenance on the 6.0 Power Stroke F-350. Yep, that is right. The good old Power Stroke needs a little help, a little TLC. Nothing bad, just some more of preventative maintenance, I'm going to say, than anything. And that is the idler pulleys, assemblies, and all that good stuff. Now, the truck's got about 145,000 miles on it. And to my knowledge, the serpentine belt has not been replaced. I've carried one around in the back of the truck for the last year just because. But in the last year or so, it's also developed a little chirp on one of the bearings. And not so bad when you're running unless it's been working hard and is hot. But when you turn off the engine, there's just a little chirp. And that's going to be indicative of one of the bearings in the idler pulley system starting to fail. And I figure, why not do it now before it becomes a big problem and potentially leaves me stranded on the side of the road with the camper and the family. Now, there's a bunch of ways you can go about doing this. Sure, you can take it to the dealer, have them put on factory parts, have 2-3 hours of shop time, and walk out of there with a $1,000 bill. You can go ahead and replace pulley by pulley. If you know which pulley it is exactly, you can just replace that one. But there's a good chance you'll be replacing other ones down the road shortly after. So what I did, I went to Rock Auto, dialed them up on the interwebs, and found the Gates Complete Kit for the engine. There are a couple of different variations, whether it's just the plain old chassis cab, if you've got dual alternators, single alternator, there's a couple of different configurations. But they sent me a box of goodies. It's like a plastic snack tray with shrink wrap on it. Not really a snack I want to eat, but it looks good nonetheless. This is the Gates kit. It comes with 4 pulleys. Yep, all sorts of good stuff, and they all appear to have hardware included with them. And one thing you'll find if you've looked at other forums or videos is a lot of the kits or single standalone parts do not come with a replacement bolt to go through back onto the engine. The one that comes on the Ford is about 3/8 inch longer, I think, because the design of this assembly here is just a little different. You can see the little recess here, which is not present in the factory one, which we'll see. This one, made in Turkey. Gobble, gobble. We also have a new long belt. I need to put a few notches in that to fit me. Anyways, I'll try and keep this one out of the dirt until we're ready to go. And this also is a Gates branded belt, so not your $5 Chinesium part that may fail on you in the near future. So we're going to go ahead and start taking this apart. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button below, turn on post notifications when we shoot out all of our content. In addition to DIY videos, if that's what brought you here, we've got restoration projects. We erected this whole shop that we're sitting in now. That's all there. A whole bunch of different stuff. Tractor stuff, car stuff, truck stuff, restoration stuff, camper stuff. We got a lot of stuff. Now, you may be asking why I'm choosing to take this option to repair it now when I've got 5 to 6 weekends coming up pulling the camper and the family around the region. Well, better now than never, because Murphy's Law would have it somewhere on the side of an interstate on a Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m., that will fail, and I'll be stranded with the family, which would be a bad time for everybody. That's happened before when the intercooler blew out last fall. Luckily, the family was in their own car, and it was just me sitting on the side of the road for a while waiting for a tow. Actually, not quite the story, but car got home, camper got home, thank you AAA, and it got fixed 2 days before we had to go out on another trip. Anyways, the reason why we're doing it now is the temperature's actually quite nice. It's been disgustingly, oppressively hot the last 6 weeks to work in the shop here, And today it's about, I don't know, 72 outside, 82 in here, but there's really no humidity. So I'm gonna take what I can get. Now I've got to run up to the house and grab some tools, but the base premise here is this guard for the fan comes off, and then you've got your idler and tensioner pulley down here, there's another pulley here, and another one over there, which you'll see once I get this shield off. Hopefully it's a couple of 10, 13, and 15 mil nuts and bolts, and then everything comes off. So I'm gonna go try and grab some tools. We'll come back and dig into this thing. Alrighty, so the first thing you want to do, grab your 8 mil, loosen these 4 bolts here. It's going to allow you to pull the whole radiator assembly forward a bit, move this power cable out of the way, and then we're going to be able to get back and pull this shroud up, hopefully, if all goes as it should. See if we can pop these up without having to take off the, well, maybe I'll see if I can get those off. Easy enough. Pop up our power thing. I left all of my plastic body thing tools in the garage, so we're gonna bust out our pliers. Don't do it this way. Get the right tool. There we go. It should pull up out of the way. Now you may need to loosen up or remove your one or both of your coolant hoses. I'm hoping I don't have to do either, because I don't want to mess. But this should pull forward now a bit, giving you room to snug this up and out of the way. Well, I guess there's part of it. Oh, I've got 2 more bolts back here. 2 more 8 mils. And what's funny is I saw those originally and totally forgot about them. Now, let's see if it's going to come off nicely or if there's more little bolts hiding somewhere. Seems like it wants to come. Pull us forward a little bit. Work it up. Nope. What's down there? What's down there and in my way? I don't know, maybe it just needs a good tug. Everything needs a good tug now and then, right? Alrighty, let's see if I can get this out of here or if there's more stuff in my way. There's probably more stuff in my way. Coolant hoses. Yeah, there's something else down there and I can't get it out. So I ended up taking off the coolant hose and expansion line because you have to, I guess. No other way around it. And then I've started to work this up. You have to work it around the back of the coolant hose connector. And some things I've seen say take out the air filter box. This is an aftermarket one. I think I can snake by it. I really don't want to take it out again. But if I do, I guess I do. So let's just try and wiggle this up and see what we can make happen. I did dump out, I don't know, maybe 20 ounces of coolant when I disconnected this hose, so I guess I kind of needed a partial flush anyways. So make sure you've got some spare coolant on hand or water if you're not in cold climates. I'm in Minnesota, so water would be very detrimental to Mr. Ford. Pull this forward, wiggle the shroud behind, up a little. You can see this side slide. This side is still sort of trapped. There we go. And yeah, my air box is in the way. So let me take that off. This is an aftermarket one, so there's half dozen of them around, a couple of bolts, bottom of it that hold it in on the frame or in the engine bay, and then a big hose clamp that holds the filter onto the enclosure, which mine is pretty well shot and I could pretty much run without it, but I'm not. It's not doing much for me. Well, I got my airbox removed, and apparently 2 of the 4 Allen heads that hold it to the air intake pipe are missing, and the stud that holds it onto the into the cab or the engine compartment is also missing. That's probably from frustration last year about this time when my charge pipe blew 2 miles from home on a Friday night when we're supposed to be going somewhere. So what did I do? I drove with the old camper 50 miles an hour and 2 pounds of boost to the dealership and did a swap in the parking lot at 6 o'clock on a Friday with a hot engine and the family eating Wendy's in the front seat of the pickup. You do what you gotta do, right? We got to our destination, we had a good weekend. Let's see if we can recreate that here. All right, we should hopefully be able to pull up the shroud now. A little bit of wiggle work. Hey, there we go. That wasn't too bad. What's holding me up down here? Oh, fan clutch. Come on, buddy. There we go. There's our wonderful thing. Really? Now what? Oh. Ugh. All right. There's an annoying little power connector running on the front side of the fan down to the fan clutch itself to engage and disengage. So be aware of that when you're pulling out your thingamajigger, your shroud, so it does not tear it off or damage that plug. Now there are a couple of more bolts somewhere that hold the rest of this shroud on, and I gotta find those bolts. Alrighty, well, it looks like they want you to take off the entire fan and rear fan shroud assembly, which is a couple of bolts on top, a couple of bolts on bottom, crawl around, now you've dripped antifreeze everywhere, take off the fan blade, fan clutch that's connected to the water pump. I don't feel like doing that. So I'm going to see if I can snake the old belt off, take off the couple of bolts I need to, just to get the belt around the fan and that housing. And if that's successful, then I do think I can snake behind the shroud with my socket and pull off the old pulleys and tensioner and start to reassemble things. So let me try and figure that out. There's a couple of bolts up here. There's 2 below as well, and one of them intersects from what I see with one of the coolant hoses. So you want to just make sure you're taking those things off carefully. And then I hope I can get that fan or the belt around things that needed to be gotten around. I guess we'll see. And if I have to end up taking everything off, that may alter what I end up doing. Alrighty, what I'm trying to get at is there's a couple of bolts back here, and then down below there's a couple of bolts. We've got our plug here for the fan. That needs to be undone. But what I can see, if my flashlight works, is down in here, there is one of our pulleys, which I can get to with a ratchet. Around the passenger side, there is a pulley hiding in there. If you can see it or not, probably not too well, I can. That's all that matters. And then right down here is our tensioner assembly. So all that hardware I can get to without having to take off this shroud. And that is my goal. Because I don't want to take the fan off, because then I risk potentially damaging the bearing in the water pump if I hit it too hard. And I know I don't have a bar long enough to get on there, or a socket big enough, or a wrench to get on there to pull it off. And the suggestion is to use an impact chisel on it, just lightly tap it. But I know I don't have one long enough, so I'd kind of be out of luck either way. So that's what I'm going to try and do it the half-arsed way. And we'll see what happens. So I'm going to give it a whack. I can't drag you down there with me because there's just not room for both of us. But I will let you know how it goes. I'm back. It's darker, and I had some challenges. Primarily the 15 mil socket that you use to remove the bolts for the fan shroud from the engine block, and the two pulleys. My 15 mil socket, if you can see, is cracked. I don't know, let's get my face out of here. There we go. It is cracked. So I've had to find alternative ways to get a 15 mil socket in there. Deep sockets are almost too deep. They can get in there with some struggle, and that's what I did. Now the nice thing is they cracked off pretty easily, and now I can just take my nut driver or my Torx, whatever you want to call the thing, wherever it is. This. I can take this to finish spinning them off the rest of the way. And the two bolts that hold the idler assembly onto the block are both 10 mils. So those came off really easily, no stuck bolts. And let me show you quick. I mean, there isn't a ton to see down here other than there's no more pulley or no more belt, because the belt is down here. I could not wrangle the tensioner into its fixed position, so I just took my tin snips and cut the belt off. Here's one of our pulleys, and then our two idlers down here below. So I'm just going to knock the rest of these off, take them off. We'll take a look and see if we can try and determine which of the one was failing. I mean, you can't see a lot in here, so I apologize for that. No, not the bad lighting, just it's a giant engine bay with a giant engine in it, and I can't really take a whole lot else off without a huge ordeal. So imagine what I'm doing. All right, let's see what I can do here. This one. There you go. Let's see if I can stay out of my own way for you. This is the one in front of the driver. No, that does not sound like a problem child. Way over here. Let's take a listen to this one here. No, pulley looks good. I mean, it's worn definitely. Let's see that again. Well, come on, focus. Here we go. Kind of. There we go. It spins, but this one's just starting to sound a little gritty. Like that may be the one going out. Now, if you're good enough or have help, you're actually able to release the tension on this and kick this little spring in to keep the tension off when you're removing it or replacing the belt. I did not, I just cut it. So we are going to grab our new stuff. Let's check it out. So here we've got our new box of stuff from Rock Auto. Alrighty, so we don't have all new hardware for everything. We have a couple of pieces, but not everything. So we've got our new bolt for this, which goes through the entire assembly into the engine. That's one that I said make sure you've got before you start reassembly. And then the other one just goes right through the top mount here, and there you go. Now, let's take a look at the old original bolt. And that's what people are talking about. If you look this issue up online, get my face in there so we can focus. Hey, look, bolts. There we go. You can see the old one here is just a little bit longer than the new one. Because on the new unit, this is a little bit recessed. So that's why they send us a new piece of hardware. And this thing is already desprung. So when we get everything in here ready to go, we can pop this pin out. It'll lock everything down in place. So I'm going to take note of where my socket needs to go in case I need to relieve some pressure on it to get this pin out and make sure everything stays in line. But new pulleys. Everything sounds nice and quiet. Alrighty, well, had to step away for a minute, but we're back, and really all I did was finish tightening up that pulley, and I found my 13 mil for the tensioner. Still have to snug everything down, but it's in there tight so I can get things lined up. Now we just take our last pulley, one without hardware. That's made in Turkey. So hey, part of this stuff is made in Turkey, part of it's made in Canada. That works. Now the one thing I want to be mindful of is I've seen some reports where this bearing is pushed down too far on one side, and there's not enough clearance on the back side here for this to fit in. And I almost wonder if we don't have that issue here. Because I have, you can see in here, there's a little bit of a recess where the bearing is. And in this one, you don't have that. But we have this spacer that goes on there. And my assumption is that this needs to be spaced out that far. So I can do one of a few things. I can put it on and send it. Even just looking at it. No, you can't tell from where you're looking at it. Maybe you can. These two, you can see the recess. You can just tell that the bearing over here is sitting lower than the new one. If we flip it over, we can see that the bearing here is higher than this one here. So what I think I need to do is go up to the bearing press and press this one down just a hair to get it in the right place. Otherwise, when we put it back together, the belt and pulley is not going to line up, and it's either going to slide off the front or slide off the back. Either way, presenting a bad time. So the fun thing for now is I don't think I'm going to have time to get to that tonight, so I'm going to have to do it tomorrow. But the pickup is halfway out of the shop. So I'm gonna have to take these bearings up to the house, deal with them tomorrow, and we will just come back with this little setback, or I could just put the old pulley back in. That would sure tell me where my squeak was, but I really don't want to deal with that fan shroud housing and taking the coolant hoses off again, so I think I may take this up to the house, measure how far this is coming out, and that'll tell me how much I need to push it in with the bearing press. So that's where I'm going to leave off for right now. And I guess we'll just have to deal with this in the daylight and a new day. Next day we are back, and I went up to the garage last night after I signed off and brought both my pulleys with. Got out measuring device, and from all I can tell, these two are actually the same. I measured distance from surface to the bearing on both sides, and the only difference I can really see is the old original bearing or pulley has a little bit of a lip right here, which the new one does not have. It's more of a flush mount. But like I said, I compared both of them sitting on the bench, measured inside bench top to the top of the bearing on both, and they were the same. And getting them both on a flat surface, they actually look close, maybe a 64th off, 32nd, but I think for this job, they are a match. So what I thought was gonna be a pain in the butt turned out to be good news, just a little bit of confirmation, and I'm glad I did before I went ahead and blindly started pressing bearings around. So that means go ahead and throw our bolt through and our retainer on the back side. So we screw this in. And there we go, we've got our assembly to go back on the pickup. That's gonna be over here, yeah, behind the fan shroud, which you can't really see, but I can get to it. Run this in. And these were not wrenched on there tight by any means, so I'm gonna do the same in putting them back. And just lightly torque them on by hand. I'm sure there's torque specs. Maybe I'll look for those quick. Hold on. All right, I checked, and it's between 35 and 45 depending on what form or diagram you're looking at. Most of them were just for the tensioner pulley itself, so I'm gonna go middle of the road and say 40 because, well, see how it feels when I bolt it down, crank it down, because I kind of knew how much it was to get off of there, so we'll see how that is going back on. Let's see. All right, there's our 40 and a hair past. Want to make sure there's no binding on that new bearing. I'll make sure my microphone doesn't keep hiding down my shirt because that's kind of annoying. Ear in. Let's go find our 10 mil and get our actual tensioner torqued on. There we go. Now I did not actually tighten that one in originally. That was pretty loose. And I think that guy was a 13. Here's my 10. Were you a 15? Nope. Nope, you were not a 15, you were the 13. I hate that. Okay, somewhere here I have the 13 mil for that last bolt on the tensioner. Where I put it, I don't know. I also need shirts with collars that hold the microphone. I reached out to Dickies to send me some pocketed just work t-shirts, and I heard crickets from them, so we're just gonna go put my green shirt back on. I'm gonna overheat, so you could really use one of those step stools that reaches over your hood. Here we go. Alrighty, so all of our hardware is back on, except our new belt. So let me pick up some of my pile of sockets here I'm gonna step on and fall on my butt. And then we'll try and get that new serpentine belt on, put our fan shroud back in place, and then we'll be done. Alrighty, I've got my new belt. Unfortunately, there's nothing that you can see in the engine bay as I'm trying to wrangle this back on. So I'm just gonna put it on, probably say a few select words in the process, and then hopefully I'll be able to pull that tensioner release out. Everything snaps back into place and we're good to go. So let me do that and we'll see how long that takes me. It's 10 after 3 right now. Let's see if it gets done before I go to daycare at 4. Actually, nope, I got 35 minutes because I've got to make a stop at the grocery store. Here we go. All right, we are back. It is a new day or a new evening, and I finally got the belt on. Let's take a look. There we go. Look, the new belt is on. There's some parts missing. There's part of the fan shroud. The fan was way over there. So I've got a little explaining to do. I was trying to get the new belt on without having to take off the fan. I figured there's a way to do it. I could snake it away, snake it around the fan, and I got it around the first pulley. Like, great. Then I realized that I had to go back around the other way, and that was not gonna happen. So at about 9:50 last night, I'm on the old interwebs, placed the order on the O'Reilly site for one of the fan clutch removal kits, the big wrench and picky thing to hold the pulley in place. Picked that up today, knocked it right off. So fan came off. With 10 minutes after that, I had the new belt on, everything tensioned, spun up the pickup, made sure the belt didn't jump off, and it's just fine. And also, there's no more little chirps when I turn off the engine. So, reassembly is pretty much just like disassembly, except in reverse. The fan, let me show you real quick. Here's the tools I picked up, and this holds the pulley in place. Holds the pulley in place while you put this on the nut of the fan and knock it loose. Now I had to put my breaker bar on top of this too, and it came right off. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just put everything back together. We'll get a good old time-lapse rock in here, and hopefully it won't take too long, because I'd really like to wrap this up because we're supposed to be on the road in a few hours. Nothing like cutting it close. Okay, so instead of a time-lapse, I'm gonna give you a little bit of information or pointers to help you. Now, if you're replacing your belt, you wanna make sure all these ribs line up where they should be, and the belt is not walking off the end of the pulley, that's a real bad thing. It's gonna shred and you're gonna have a bad day. Also, these little idlers down here, we got this guy here and one over on the far side, just to make sure that even though it's a smooth pulley, it is not walking front or back, because if it slides off the back or off the front again, bad things are going to happen. And pretty much reassembly is going to be drop that fan shroud in, drop the fan in, spin it back on this giant stud down here, and you know, it's not in focus. There it is. Spin it back on there, put our front shroud in, tuck it up underneath with a couple of 15 mil bolts, add some coolant because we lost a lot, and we'll be good to go. I'm gonna put in some coolant, like I said, probably just go for a couple of 2-3 miles around the block, just make sure everything is good to go before we set out on a 180-mile one-way trip, because nothing says fun like being stranded on 94 with a camper and your family and traffic passing you doing 80 miles an hour. That doesn't sound fun at all. So an ounce of caution, definitely worth it. And this is not really a roadside repair. I mean, look at the crap I've done to get this thing off and back on. You're not gonna be taking this many parts off on the side of the road. You're gonna be calling AAA, towing your butt to the next shop and having them fix it for you while you send your family off in a rental car. That's what I see happening if it breaks on the road. So go ahead and throw it back together and we'll be right back. Well, the old Ford's all back together was not that much of a pain. Just double check, make sure, especially when you're putting that fan shroud on, that your fan does have clearance and the fan blades don't touch the outside of that shroud, or bad things are gonna happen. It may also be helpful when you are well, that was a neighbor kid stopping by to sell some raffle tickets for sports activities at school. Heck yeah, I'm in for 20 bucks. Why not? What I was saying about the fan and the shroud, make sure that the fan clears that shroud all the way around. You don't want that to hit going down the road. Bad things will happen. And also, when you've got that fan out, make sure there's no cracks or chips in those blades, because as long as it's out, you can get a good visual of it. And if there are any, you know, cracks or defects in it, replace it, because you're gonna have to do it either way. Otherwise, it's back together. I just gotta add some more coolant. I've got it up to the fill line now, but I'm gonna run it. I know we dropped a bunch out at the bottom with that hose coming off to take out everything. So I'm gonna throw it in the pickup just to be safe. I'm not really worried. But I probably put maybe 2 quarts in there. So the rest of it's just sitting here in the shop floor, keeping the dust away. Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up. And this is a good educational episode of times when you can DIY it without getting the right tools. And then there's this time when you really should get the right tools. So all in all, the Gates kit was about 140 bucks for the belt, the pulley, idler, and all that stuff. And then that the tool, the gear wrench tool from O'Reilly's is about $98 with tax and all. I'm sure depending on where you are, you have a local auto parts store that will rent them to you or loan them, or you've got a neighbor. Me, I've got neighbors, but I bother them enough as is. And I didn't want to make multiple trips to borrow, return it, maybe we need it again. I just have it. I'm sure I'll be working on this again in the future, or some other vehicle that needs it. So, without any further rambling from me, I'm out of here. Hope it's helped. Again, hit subscribe below. Check us out, Facebook, Instagram. We've got new content every week. Been doing that for over a year now, sometimes twice a week. Anyways, until the next video, have a great time and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.